even more uncertain than the matters of fact. You see, when you're walking down the stairs and you're not looking, when you miscount the stairs, you might take a step when you're expecting there to be another step and there isn't one.
Yeah.
That means that your prediction was flawed. And that means that the prediction that, seeing that the, the prediction you're making is, okay, every single thing that's complicated that we have observed has had a maker.
Yes.
We can observe the maker, we can see the maker,
yes.
we can prove it.
Yes.
But the universe, we can't see the maker, we can't prove the maker. However, seeing that every single thing before us had a maker, every single complicated thing, we assume that the universe will automatically have a maker.
Yes.
It's not illogical,
can I
but
ask
it's
you a
not
question?
certain.
Out of 1,000 things that you have seen that have been made, how many of that are complicated structures, like the camera, all the devices,
yeah.
all of them have had a maker?
You mean like the technology?
Yeah.
Yes, humans,
all of them. Right.
Humans are the
So
maker.
in terms of, because the problem with Hume's radical skepticism is if you follow it logically through to its conclusion, you can't be certain of anything.
Of course.
Right. But the real way
that's why they call me Mr. Uncertain.
But the real way that we understand things isn't through simple empiricism. We have intuition. We have an emotional self. We have a sense of our own history. We have cultural history. We understand the world through stories.
Of course.
If I ask you what you did today or what you're doing now, you'll tell me a story. If I ask you what you did yesterday, you'll tell me a story. If I ask you what you're going to do tomorrow, you'll tell me a story. The human mind thinks in stories. It thinks in narratives. Right. Those narratives come from a cultural milieu in which certain questions are proposed to the mind and certain categories of mind are informing our perception of the world. Okay, that's just how we think.
Okay.
Right. So, if we are tutored to think in a certain way, it means that we will have certain categories of mind that therefore cannot encapture all of the available evidence.
Absolutely.
And I would say that that is the fundamental flaw of Hume's narrative, is that he constructs a narrative that is so restrictive to phenomena, so restrictive to everything, because he was writing at the time of the height of the scientific revolution. So the cultural questions that he were faced were connected to empirical science and the limitations of positivism. Okay? However, this understanding of human nature is itself flawed, because there are many things that we can be certain of as true that are not empirically verifiable, such as your mother's love. Would you agree your mother loves you?
I would agree.
And would you agree that that's not empirically provable?
Empirically? I mean absolutely provable.
It's not provable through empirical...
You see, I don't believe in absolute empiricism.
Neither do I. Right. But the point is, Hume was criticizing. He was trying to demonstrate the limitations of what we could know through our senses.
Limitations of knowledge, exactly.
Yeah, he was demonstrating a limitation of knowledge, but a limitation of knowledge in a particular context. And that particular context was the scientific revolution. But human nature is not defined by Western European questions of the Enlightenment. Human nature is broader, bigger, greater than the questions of the European Enlightenment. Okay? It's a particular social, cultural milieu. And that's the flaw with Hume's narrative, is he assumes that the Western way, the Western liberal way of thinking about everything is the best way of thinking about everything.
Not necessarily, but look, Bob, what you're saying, the argument you're using, is a sword that cuts both ways. Just as, and the difference is, I do accept the possibility of me being mistaken when you don't, because you follow an ideology that works in absolutes. There is absolutely one God that can absolutely be proven. I don't function that way. For me, if you can give me a better logical explanation of how the world functions, fair enough, I will accept it. But what you're doing now is showing uncertainty in my ideology, which is based on showing other people that no ideology is certain.
What I'm showing to you is that
basically you're not disagreeing.
No, what I'm showing to you is that the narrative that you're following is an incoherent narrative.
It's not incoherent. There's a possibility of
allow me
flaw,
to explain.
but you're not showing necessarily.
Firstly, you
exactly
you
what the flaw
infer
is.
to me. You infer to me this idea that I never make mistakes. I make plenty of mistakes.
No, not you. The ideology you follow.
No. That I make
The God
plenty of mistakes.
follow.
Well, actually, if you actually understood the Christian worldview essentially says that human beings are flawed and will make mistakes. That's the whole point of the Christian faith.
And yet they have absolute faith in their belief.
Yes, we have absolute faith in Christ. That's what we're called to have.
If you have mistakes, how come you can have that absolute belief?
One second. In terms of what is certain, we can have reasonable certainties based upon logical steps. And the logical step that I say is this: 1, language indicates intelligence. Code is a language. There is a code to the physical structure of the cosmos. It is there in physics. It is observable, it is replicable, it is something that we can codify in mathematics, and we do so often. A perfect example is E equals mc squared. That is the formula that is used partly to help all the satellites go around the Earth that allows all your phones to work. In other words, Einstein had a theory. We used his mathematical description of how the universe worked to understand how it worked, to predict how it would continue to work, and then we based an action on that working that is allowing your mobile phones to work right now. Right. So it's connected. Okay. Well, whichever. I'm quite. Anyway, the point of the matter is, there's an example of a mistake if he's right. So the point of the matter is that if we are clearly seeing a code in the structure of the physical universe, it is a fair conclusion to draw that there is a code giver.
All right. First of all, as I said already, the code is not offered to you by the universe. The code is something you invent to understand the universe better. The code was invented by humans. Language was invented by humans. Math was invented by humans. To understand the laws by which the universe abides to. Do you understand what I mean?
Yeah, but I do get what you say, but the code is only successful if it's describing a reality that is there, and we know that the reality is there because from this coding we can predict what happens next and thus base judgments on what we do about it,
but there is no proof
that
that reality was done by an intelligent being. The code was done by an intelligent being to understand the reality. Right. But the reality is not the same as the code.
No, the code itself is describing the reality.
Of course.
And therefore the reality is codified. It works to a law.
No, Bob,
it works to a law. That's why you can codify it. You couldn't codify something that was lawless.
A logic law by which the world abides doesn't necessarily have to be created by an intelligent being.
So give me an example of that where your argument is valid. Give me an example of a law, a structure, hasn't come about through a creator.
Well, I can't give you an example where it happens, but I can tell you that it's not certain that it does happen like you were saying that it does.
If all the evidence is saying that there is structure to the universe, right? If all the evidence says that wherever we find structure, like within our own world, within the sociological world, the anthropological world.
Fair enough.
Yeah? If all of that is showing that where there is structure and law, that has a giver.
It's an observed regularity.
Yes, absolutely. It is an observed regularity.
It's logical, but it's not absolute logic.
To doubt that, you have to give good reasons to doubt.
I give my imperfection as a good reason.
But you're still operating two laws. Your nature points to something beyond yourself.
It doesn't operate to something beyond myself. It operates to certain rules by which the universe functions.
Do you have a sense of absolute morality?
No.
You don't. So, do you agree with... Let's use an example. Okay? Do you agree with the idea that someone can...
Does absolute morality exist?
Yeah, I believe so. So, on what basis? Yeah, I want in what basis?
Hello. No, I'm contributing. Okay, well, listen to me then.
Yeah.
Listen to me.
Unfortunately, this guy heckles. This guy does this every week.
Why haven't you asked him?
Right, guys.
Is there no freedom of speech?
Yeah, he can heckle.
Are we not allowed to say our
You can heckle if you
opinion?
want to.
Are we not allowed to say our
I know
opinion
what's going
freely?
on. Don't worry. I had this
This
conversation
is
many
Speaker's
times.
corner, my friend.
If I don't, let me get caught in the trap, and I will get debunked here. If I don't, I'll make the mistake and I will learn from it. But don't ruin the conversation for other people.
Thank you. Anyway, well done, Pavel.
I'm lifting the level.
So, lowering the level like you do every week. So, in terms of the moral structure, here I'm arguing that our nature points towards something beyond simply the natural world. And one of the evidences that I've given to that is the idea of structure within the universe. Another evidence that I've given to that is the idea that by codification we indicate law, governance within the cosmos, and that both of these indicate a lawgiver, someone, a designer behind that.
Science confirms the structure in the universe.
And another evidence that I would give to that is our very nature reaches out of our bodies to something that is metaphysical when we reach out to moral absolutes. Now, lots of people say they don't believe in moral absolutes, but when tested, they usually do. So, for example, do you believe, let's use the constant trope in such debates, do you believe that the Nazis' conduct towards the Jews in World War II was morally reprehensible?
That's a perfect example that you've given me right now, and I thank you very much for it, because this is the perfect opportunity for me to actually show that my perception of morality is actually more functional than the absolute morality. Hitler thought he was doing the right thing. He was certain that his morality was absolute and the Jews were evil people.
Yes.
It is because Hitler didn't have any doubt in his mind. It's because he completely ignored all imperfection of him as a human that he killed those people. And that's what will happen when people put a certain justice as an absolute. They will become corrupted by it without ever realizing it.
So what is your actual... So are you... I'm sorry,
I
I'm not
think
clear.
what Hitler did
you
is
say it was
completely
morally right or morally wrong?
dysfunctional. If we
Was it
see,
morally right or morally wrong?
I don't see the world in terms of morally right, morally wrong.
Now,
I see the world in terms of functionality.
So it's function. So if there is a function to be served by what Hitler did, it becomes what, morally right?
Listen to me. What Hitler did was inherently dysfunctional.
Inherently dysfunctional.
Yes.
What was wrong with what he did?
Bob, don't go to the wrong. I don't
So
delve
there was
with
no
right
condemn
and
it.
wrong.
You don't
Are you
condemn.
saying
But
that
okay,
it wasn't
wait.
wrong what he did?
Let me explain this properly. Because you're putting me in a tight spot right now, in which you make me say what Hitler did was not wrong. So what? What is right? No. There is no absolute right. There is no absolute wrong.
Yeah.
There are things that are more functional for humanity and are things that are more dysfunctional for humanity.
So
and
Nietzsche's
exterminating
philosophy.
people based on their race is something absolutely and utterly dysfunctional. Because when you exterminate one race, you remove the taboo of exterminating any race that disagrees with
But
you.
you've just created a moral paradigm right there. You have just said that if you do not oppose something, you set a precedent by which it can be repeated. And that is an appeal to morality. You haven't appealed to function. You've just appealed to a utilitarian ethic.
Yes.
Right.
Utilitarian ethic.
Utilitarian.
But that's not an absolute morality.
That is an appeal to morality. So can you say...
Bob,
one
no.
second.
You're,
Can you
you're
say,
distorting
Pavlov,
what I said.
can you say that it is always wrong to rape children?
Bob, once again, you're putting me in
I'm
a
just
tight...
asking you a
no,
basic
wait,
question.
Bob, that's a fake question.
No, it's not. It's a perfectly
No,
valid...
listen, Bob,
Is it a...
Bob.
Is it a...
Raping
is it
children,
an invalid-
raping children is utterly
Answer him,
dysfunctional.
come on.
It is utterly
believe.
dysfunctional to
Yes.
rape a child, but it's not wrong.
Bob, there is no absolute right or wrong.
There is no absolute right
You
or
see,
wrong.
you see, you're appealing to the public right now.
I'm appealing
you're
to
doing
your
the same
sense
as the
of right and
Dawas
wrong.
do. No, Bob,
but you're
Bob,
suppressing
Bob,
right now because you
Bob,
know
Bob.
raping children is wrong. You just don't want to say so. It's
It's
pride that
completely-
is governing your argument right
It's
now.
out of
Okay, Bob, let's take this step by step.
Disgusting.
What is a child?
Right.
big crime.
What distinguishes
Big
a
crime. Biggest.
person who can
one of the biggest crimes you can ever.
Of age, and a person who's a child, who's underage. First of all,
and the religious
Firstly,
people. They do
I
it,
think
by
you're
the way.
focused in on
The
the wrong
Christian,
thing.
the popes.
The question is,
And,
we should be
I
talking
will-
about rape,
about
not
rape.
age.
I will
Because
come to-
rape
no,
of any
you will-
person is
you
wrong.
will see why I focused
Rape
on the
of any
age
person
first.
is wrong.
You will
Most of
see
them
why
are
I focused on the age
So
first.
age is irrelevant to rape.
No. Answer the
Depends-
question.
I was just using the
I
most
answered your
emotional
question, answer my
example.
question.
How many
But I'll
pedophiles
answer
in
your
your church
question.
saw?
A child is
This is
someone
a
who is
good
emotionally, physically, and spiritually unable to give consent to the act of, well, in this sense, is someone who's emotionally, physically, and spiritually unable to function alone.
Okay. So is a person who's paralyzed a child?
No.
They never hate the.
Right.
Just contradicted
Hold
what
on
you
one
said.
second. 1 second.
Yeah, he's
These are
taking
special
advantage of-
conditions. If we look at a child, the maxim of a child, a physical attribute has to be. They all have to be there. Emotional, physical, and spiritual. Someone may be physically incapacitated, but emotionally capable. So someone who's handicapped and maybe has to go around in a wheelchair still may have all their mental faculties. A child is someone that has none of these complete faculties in maturity.
Yeah, they might have the mental faculties, or they might not.
So now-
and that creates an exception to the rule that you
now
showed
I've
me.
answered. You seem to be suggesting that there is a way to legitimize the raping of a child.
I'm not surprised that you would take it that way.
So-
now
so-
let me
Answer the question.
explain my
Is
opinion
it
without you
morally
putting
wrong?
me in a tight spot.
Is it morally wrong?
I don't delve into morality, Bob. Stop putting me in a spot where I need to abide by your moral code. I do not abide by your moral code.
No,
I
I'm
abide.
asking you,
No,
by
wait,
your
Bob,
moral
Bob,
code, do you
Bob,
think it's wrong?
By my moral code, I think it's wrong. But
Wrong.
I don't see.
There we go.
But I don't see my moral code as an absolute.
Yeah.
What I do see in the world is the purpose of life, that all things must grow or die. And if we start raping the children, it is utterly dysfunctional for our species, and it will completely ruin us, because humans are weak creatures.
Right, so what you've done again, now please notice, and this is the point that I was making, is that human nature grasps at morality. He did say it was wrong. And to be fair to
According
Pavlov,
to my morality.
according to your morality exactly, he did say it was wrong. And that's the point that I'm making, ladies and gentlemen, is that our human nature reaches out to something that is above and beyond simple natural concerns. It reaches out
Is that
to,
morality
let me finish,
absolute?
Pavlov.
Is that morality absolute?
I'm going to, let me finish. And that reaching out to something that is above simple natural concerns is a reaching out to something that is metaphysical. And if it is reaching out to something that is metaphysical, then that means it is something supernatural. It is above the natural. Now, he did make another appeal to a different kind of ethic. He appealed to social Darwinism. Did you all hear that? When he said that the point of life is to continue and it's about the weak and the strong. That is social Darwinism. If you don't believe me, go and look it up. You'll see that it matches up well with what Pavlov said. The problem with social Darwinism is that what it values is strength in life. The Übermensch, as Nietzsche called it. The Aryan race, as Hitler called
Wait,
it.
are you?
1 second.
You're now going to call me a Nazi?
I didn't call you a Nazi, and I'm not
Okay,
going
fair
to.
enough. But
To
you're
be
going
fair,
those
to be,
steps.
let me be honest. So, because I don't want to mischaracterize Pavlov. I've talked with Pavlov lots of times. I think the reason why Pavlov is unwilling to call a spade right now is because his ego has got the better of his temperament, and he doesn't want to admit that he does actually function to a moral code, and that moral code is imprinted in his heart like it's imprinted in all of you. Now, if my argument is true, that in all of us there is a moral code, a sense of right and wrong, a sense of ought, as C.S. Lewis put it, a sense of what we ought to do. When we say ought, we are appealing to something above nature, because there is no ought in survival of the fittest. There is only, I am stronger, you are weaker. But if we say that I have the strength to dominate you and I don't, because I ought not to do so, then what we are appealing to is something beyond simple, natural ways. We're appealing to something that is metaphysical, that is outside of nature.
Are you finished?
Yeah. So he's not a Nazi. He's
you
just
haven't
proud.
finished.
He's just proud.
Are you finished? Yeah.
Yeah.
So he's not.
He's not a Nazi.
Okay,
he's just
wait.
proud.
Let's. I am proud, but this. Fuck! I lost my thing. Oh no, I didn't. There it is. Never mind. Never mind.
Show the logo.
Thank you, my lord. Thank you very much. Oh man, I lost my point now. That looking for that thing. I have it again. I have it again. I have the point again. So, Bob, I do indeed have a morality of my own.
Yes.
I never contested that.
Yep.
What I do contest is that what I do usually say is that I don't like delving into moralities because I do not believe in an absolute morality that functions for absolutely everybody. I do not believe in this ingrained morality in our heart that you so eloquently appeal to the feelings of the people, because I don't believe that such a thing can be proven by any means possible. I do, however, believe in the functionality of morality and that there are better moralities than others. Raping children is not a morality that has any kind of sense to it. Humans have nothing to gain with it and everything to lose with it. It will make humans become very corrupted. It will make humans become degenerate. And that degeneration appeals to the human weakness inside them that will destroy their societies. Because humans do have free will. Humans do have an ability to choose. They have their own will. And that is why I don't believe in God, because I have my own free will and I will use it as many times as I can. Now, for example, other beings that live in a society, like ants, it's a perfect society, but they have zero free will into them. They have one morality, the hive mind. Their hive mind is absolute, there's no question about it, but they are machines. They are practically machines programmed to do exactly the same thing over and over again. Humans are not like that. Let me give you just 2 questions, and with those 2 questions, I think we can reach a lot more than what we're kind of, going in circles here. Let me give you 2 questions. First of all,
Stop moving around that way,
just, turn the camera. Okay. So the 2 questions are going to be: when all humans are exterminated, will there be any morality?
Are you asking me now?
Yes.
Yes.
There will.
Yep.
Second question. If the only humans that remain are the humans that believe in raping children as the morality,
Yep.
is that the morality we have?
That might be the morality they have, but that is not moral.
But there are no more humans to defend any different morality.
Okay.
That's the only morality that exists.
Now, here's the flaw. Here's the danger of an atheistic, agnostic worldview. You heard it articulated perfectly just now by Pavlov. If universally we agree that something is right, it is right. And that is the danger of an agnostic and atheistic perspective of the world.
That's
No,
exactly
Pavlov,
what
I
I
didn't
oppose.
interrupt you. I did not
That's
interrupt
exactly
Pavlov.
what
I did not
oppose.
interrupt you just then. Don't interrupt me. Right? Pavlov has just, in his 2 questions, demonstrated the fallacy of his logic.
What's the other
That just because we see the world a certain way, therefore it is right. And that is the fundamental problem with Western society right now, is that we have no authority greater than our parliament, and our parliament is making immoral laws, such as redefining marriage, such as permitting abortion, such as allowing divorce freely and at liberty. The reason why our code, our sense of ought indicates a creator is because even within such a society as Pavlov describes, where everybody agrees that raping a child is good, I would contest.
That's a terrible argument.
I would contest. That was Pavlov's argument.
Jamie.
That was Pavlov's argument.
If he's going to talk about rape, if he's going to talk about rape...
When your enemy is making a mistake, don't interrupt
He's
him.
quoting Waterloo. He's quoting the film Waterloo.
Now, friendly
And that
enemy,
was
just
that was
a discussion,
Napoleon.
not an actual
That was
enemy.
Napoleon's comment to Wellington. So, it's a good film, by the way.
It is.
Yeah,
I really
I
like
told you he was quoting Waterloo. You see, the thing is, you can come to the corner and you can come out with nice little rhetorical catchphrases. But the
Come on,
very
it makes
thing,
sense.
the very thing that makes us human, one of the things that makes us most human, is to explore that sense of ought that sense of right and wrong, and to follow it where it leads you. And if you follow it, I'm convinced it will lead you to God. This is, notice, Pavlov has said multiple times in this debate, I don't like to delve into morality. And he did say that. I don't like to delve into morality. And he also said, I don't believe in God because I have free will. In other words, what he's saying is, which is what my original criticism of him was at the very beginning of this debate, is that he doesn't want to believe in God because he fears it will constrain his free will. And that is the reason why he wants to dismiss the overwhelming evidence that points to God's existence. Overwhelming evidence. Codification and structure in the cosmos.
Observe the regularities.
That we are able to tap into by our intellect. Intellect speaking to intellect. Two. The atheists are rattled. I don't blame them. So,
no, I just don't like the argument to be interrupted by outside parties.
That language is an indication of intelligence, and that the universe has a clear code. A clear code, and code is a language.
Bob, come on, just wrap up your point. I have my own things to say. You can't just
that our very sense of ought, our very sense of our nature pushes towards something beyond simply questions of survival and breeding, which indicate that our spirit is reaching outside of our flesh. So back to his analogy of a society that agrees and has decided that child rape is wrong. I would say that people within that society, when faced with the pain that they're causing to those children as they rape them, would be forced to reflect on that sense of ought and would conclude that raping a child is wrong, which indicates a code greater than simply we making an intellectual decision.
Okay, thank you. You finished your point. Good. Now this is the perfect example of the pot calling the cattle black. It's the perfect example of that. I said many times that I do not believe in an absolute morality, and that's exactly why I would not be part of that society that would think that their absolute morality of raping children is correct.
Yep.
Now you tell me, where's the difference between your morality that you believe to be absolute and their morality that you simply because you don't agree with it, because admittedly it has big flaws, why do you believe yours is absolute and theirs is not? What is it in you that's so special that you can come to absolute conclusions when those people cannot come to those absolute conclusions?
Okay.